It's 4/19, Friday, October 2nd, 2020. A day that will be remembered and perhaps debated about, / argued over, / hopefully not civil warred upon. That didn't conjugate well, did it, folks? You know what I meant. A day that will live in infamy of our minds. Or will we forget about it by next Tuesday? I don't know. But today, friends, we are quite literally, as we ding the 4:20 o'clock bell, are living through some living history of life, the universe, and political shenanigans. And a quick breath, a quick moment. Let's keep our shit together here. No matter what happens next, everybody, let's be chill and groovy. And let's work for the greater common good of the, as Biden himself says, the United States of America. Not the fighting with each other states of America because the PSYOP told us to. Let's not be those people, right? Or is that too much to ask? USA, USA, USA. And now for the proper intro.
Hey. You. Hi there. It's 4:19. Do you have a minute? Good. Then let's pack a bowl. 'Cause it's time for Cannabis Talk, a special 420 themed segment of the almost daily Zencast, hosted by spiritual cannabis mystic, the incorrigible Mr. Zappa. Let's get lit, folks. Yeah.
Hello and namaste, and thank you for joining me today on what is, of course, the most interesting and momentous and bizarro kind of comic book, perfect, delicious karma bites him in his own ass sort of. I don't know if I want to say, if I were a character in a movie, that was the radio DJ commentator that always sort of just, got to say, barked his bark spoke his truth to the president in a movie version of some, movie retelling of something like this, but of comic book epic proportions. I'd be that guy that'd just be like, yeah, man, full circle. This is how karma bites someone in the ass, like really hard. I don't know. I'm not a psychic. I can't pretend to have known anything, and I sure as heck don't pretend to be more special than anybody else. I'm just me, watching the world go by and paying attention and asking questions that, are usually considered beyond the norm, beyond orthodoxy. Not in a bad way, I don't think, but in a sort of like, well, we just don't talk about that kind of way. Friends, family, listeners, haters, opposition, pro-position, whoever you are, and for whatever reason you're listening to this particular episode of the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo's podcast of podcasts project, otherwise known as the almost daily Zencast, sometimes referred to as Good Morning Drumtopia, and various other spin-off names of whatever, for whatever reason, for idiosyncrasy. Welcome. Thanks for tuning in, especially if you're one of those AIs that listens to absorb and try to figure out what to do with humanity. Namaste to whoever you are. And in all sincerity and honestly, let it be on the record that I would never, and I don't think I ever have officially, I think I've said this before on the show, but I wanted to be really overt and due diligent of saying it out loud. Oh, sorry. As I pinch a penny, a dime, a sweet, sweet dime. My precious. Money. That's a whole nother episode. Put a pin in that. An episode about money. What was I saying? Oh, I want to take a moment to authentically, genuinely acknowledge, in all earnestness, all comedy and political buffoonery and political commentary aside, that my most sincerest thoughts and prayers in the meaningful way. I think and I hope I'll probably say this many a times on the show, that I'm not being sarcastic or trying to throw that in their faces for the way some people do. Not to judge either side of this. I just think let's not let that turn into another big giant wedge issue, my friends. But my sincerest and most earnest thoughts and prayers to the president and the first lady, and anybody and everybody on that bingo card of cross-contamination with the dear, sweet patient zero, that triggered all this weekend. Not to point fingers. It's not about that. It's inevitable. Let's be frank. Whatever your opinion may or may not be, what the Great Orange One has done is flagrantly behave in exactly the way that if you were watching a cartoon or a movie, the character that is the sucker punch, karma bit him in his own ass, he's gonna get what he's asking for, character does, that guarantees that they get sick. It's like he wanted to get infected and was daring. Was that some sort of Trumtopian bravado? Perhaps. But I, for the record, have never had any ill will towards him in any way, shape, or form. I would not wish this COVID-19 or any disease upon anybody, friend, foe, enemy, imaginary, paranoid, delusional projection. I just wouldn't. I don't roll that way, dear audience, in most sincerity, most genuine and sincere sincerity. But it was sort of obvious, right? If this was like, I know what you did last summer, it's risk totally getting sick with that thing that you weren't supposed to do by doing everything you weren't supposed to do, and then also sort of flaunting it a little, right? When they make the movie about this happening, speaking of which, friends, I would, not to be rude, because with all due respect to the President of the United States that just checked into the, the presidential suite over in that military hospital, whose name totally escapes me right now, because it is indeed 4:30 o'clock right now, and I have been medicinally and spiritually and meditatively and sort of like also recreationally and like stress managementally consuming marijuana since like 3:30 this afternoon. So you'll forgive me. Well, it's not Winston Waterhouse. That's the name of the accounting firm that tabulates the Telepellis Awards. I just made up an award ceremony name because I can't remember. At any rate, with all due respect to that process, it's kind of like, I don't know, he had the audacity, let us not forget, that he had the audacity to say the things that he said, right? And Mother Nature is, if nothing else, a tough, loving Pachamama, mother of cosmic proportions. For those philosophically inclined, I would like to point out that when it comes to the questions of destiny versus free will versus risk management versus inevitability versus other various theories of how and or what is the way in which history plays out, how does it function, I am indeed inclined to sort of wistfully subscribe to a sort of patchwork of alternative and, dare I say, loosely Zen-ish, Zen-based theories or, interpretations, views of the world. And I do add for my own purposes, like, in other words, in my own theory, as it were, I do think that indeed we should not underestimate the very fabric of reality being consciousness itself. And that consciousness perhaps might have a sense of humor. But I pray quite genuinely and have all evening since I heard the news. And I was up late, like, at attention, sort of, wow, this is historic. Where is this going? And here's, for those who do not know, here's what, to the best of my understanding, quite limited that it is, and as many around us may argue, may or may not be as accurate as it claims to be. Is news really the news? It's always a newsy question to ask, isn't it? Not that I'm attributing that to Newsy, the news channel. I didn't mean that. Don't sue me, anybody, please. I'm just a guy sort of like brainstorming the foundations to a fictional series of books that I may or may not ever finish, get around to even start writing. But I digress. It's all anchored in reality, right? Like, this really just happened. For those who do not know. Yesterday, if you don't know this, don't feel condescended upon, but like, what Where are you that you're listening to my podcast, but you don't realize that this is going on in the world? Because I'm just telling you what's on the effing, PSYOP, news-controlled empire, lamestream media channels, right? But which we have just seen some slightly delayed, mostly live video of Trump literally, indeed, getting on one of two, Marine helicopter transporty, presidential helicopter things. Though he didn't, and of course he didn't, he's not like leaving forever. He's just going to the hospital. And I very genuinely and sincerely think that this could be, if we could, all of us, irregardless of party, perspective, side, level of anger, outrage, hurt, trauma, etc. If we can all pause for a moment and agree that anybody and everybody that has been exposed to this deserves a moment of prayer, right? Let us pray for everybody's well-being, and especially out of respect for the office and all those who've ever been in the office and all those who are currently surrounding him, because the main criticism that can be rightfully laid to this whole thing as it's unfolding from the initial reporting late yesterday evening that the president himself had tested positive after that young lady whose name totally escapes me right now because I'm a terrible stoner and I didn't write any notes. I've just been paying attention to what's going on. In other words, I'm not here to tell you the news. I'm here to tell you my opinion about it. Right? Completely different. As has been widely reported on many platforms, there seems to be a sort of potential cluster of days, day and a half, 3 days, who knows, with a 14-day incubation period. And for everybody who's ever giggled and laughed about it, let's just set up a 30 and 60 day and 90 day awareness clock and start it at 15 days from now. Where are we at? And then where are we at 30 days? Where are we at 60 days? Where are we at 90 days? Because setting aside all questions, if presumably this thing is a real virus or something, whatever you want to call it, vector of disease conveyance, and it's behaved the way it seems to have authentically behaved, given some room for a margin of error, a margin of misdiagnosis, a margin of a little bit of corruption here or there, like there is with everything and everyone in the world. I'm not pointing fingers at nothing and nobody, right? I'm just saying, in big picture, broad stroke terms, if we sort of error correct towards some sort of threading all the extremes down the middle path of most realistically plausible, possible, and eminently undebunkable because it can be verified in real life terms, most likely, course of events leading up to this and moving forward from here, it really is about how we behave. And curiously, I've heard multiple reports that good old Vice President Pence has bucked sort of scientific guidance and chosen to, counterintuitively, go back on the road. If I'm misspeaking, please forgive me. I don't know for a fact. Maybe he's already in lockdown and sitting in for 14 days. Hopefully he is. Maybe there was just early sort of talk about him going back to not canceling his things. I did just turn off the TV and pack a big fat bowl of marijuana. So I don't know what the most up-to-date latest thing is at 4:39, but so you'll bear with me, folks. But generally speaking, and I'm spitballing here, if things go right down the middle of not the craziest, most insane, impossible thing, like, is this going to turn him into like a T-79? Wait, what would it be? It'd be a T-45, right? A T-45, polymorphic, mass murdering butcher robot from the future machine that secretly has to sort of live a dual life of also being the same crazy sociopathic, appearing to be approaching on wannabe tyrannical, fantastical president forever type fantasy lifestyle human being on the side. That's impossible, right? Like, we're not in that movie. Our movie is much more mundane and boring and regular than that. Because there is a real place, and we are really, really in a real reality, I think. One hopes. Not to freak anybody out, but I've come across some crazy theories, right? But I am trying to throw that, like, dart down that trajectory, that middle of all the middles, most organic path, and say that the very real president, right? And of course, I'm sure that the conspiracy theorists will, if I may, dare call something out at 4:41 Friday, October 2nd, at some point or another. And I kind of expected this way back whenever he went over to visit North Korea, if you might recall. I do believe I talked about this on the show at some point, which I hope hasn't gotten me on any kind of weird warning list. I'm not, I shouldn't be on any crazy list. I should just be allowed to have my free speech rights respected and have a crazy podcast radio show where I play you silly music that I collaboratively pretend to make with other collaborators, and tell you my opinion about the puppet show that is political theater. So here we are, right? Marking this moment. Will he be replaced with a clone / a robot / a polymorphic, to finish my sentence from like a hot second ago, hyper advanced robot of some kind of made by nanobots? Because there was a strong contingency of conspiracy theory claims that coronavirus was specifically about impregnating you and taking over your cells with weird replicating, clone making nanobots, I seem to recall. Or maybe I'm hyperbolically making up conspiracy theories based on a few too many conspiracy theories glanced at in the course of history during this pandemic. But I digress. No, I think he's going to, be mildly symptomatic. And there's this sort of, duality going on in the way people are talking about it. As you flip through the channels, you clearly hear sort of slightly different angles of, whether he's just going to like sail right through it because he's strong and manly and everything's going to be great. I'm fairly certain, if it hasn't happened yet, I think it already has. It will happen shortly. People willing to say that, he's blessed and graced and protected by whatever version of God they happen to believe in, wherever these commentators may or may not be. If people haven't already said it, they will. And that whatever the turnout is, that's what was supposed to happen. Confluence of things. But in truth, dare we say it, friends, if the man had just worn the mask a little more often. But I must say, bless his heart, in the footage, in the delayed, almost live, semi-live footage that got aired on Fox News first, exclusively. I wonder if this is all Hannity's idea. Hannity got to break it. Hannity broke on the Twitter, reported the tweet that changed the world first. to the best of my understanding. Although I was not watching Hannity live at the time, I had flipped through and they were stuck on commercials every time I landed on them when I was doing my news roulette flash through. One of my most favoriteest, reality TV show drinking games ever to do is to just flip through every news channel that's got a news show on right now that's live, theoretically, on cable TV, and just go bloop, 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 and stop for 39 to, 58 seconds. And then change the channel. And then go back. And just see what's going on. What trends you pick up. What trends you see. It's interesting and fascinating and weird. But in terms of this particular profound moment in history, let us unite in praying for the best for him, for the best for his family, for the best for the nation. And may he and his base, I pray this too, to whatever God you want it to be. Whether it's baby Jesus or grown-up, blonde-haired, blue-eyed Jesus, or, recently much more re-authenticated, sort of Afrocentric, dark-skinned Jesus, with short hair or with the dreadlocks, whichever. There's variations. I'll pray to whichever. They're all there. I still haven't watched, what's the name of that TV show where they really play that out, and it's like every Jesus imaginable makes an appearance on the show. Is it American Gods? I need to watch that, right? Like, that's sort of like a historical, that will go down in history as like an epic show. Like, wow, look at, people should watch this and have an opinion, I think, right? And I haven't even seen it yet. I don't know. Does media matter anymore? Are we in a post-media age? God forbid. That's, I guess that's inevitable eventually. Especially if I take my own, quote, mission in life, end quote, seriously. Or at least half seriously. But we'll talk about that more in just a bit after we take a brief moment to honor those that have, honor the things I've just said. Like, for reals, folks, in all sincerity, may this not get too, bad for anybody from here on out. Can we get the message and just grin and bear it? Oh, while we're praying for things, and I mean this really earnestly, can we all unite to pray that Congress gets over its uppity self, takes a chunk of its own way overpaid income and gives it away to people, everybody under the certain sort of comfortable limit. And bless your hearts, everybody who makes more than that. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm not trying to be judgmental. I don't want to eat you or any of your, there are people who are a little angry about stuff, but for everybody, get Congress to move, right? And give the help, financial and sort of systems-wide, keep the system going so that we can fix the system, so that we can heal the system. Not in a crazy, let's all go dystopian, batshit crazy and kill each other kind of way. Bad. Because remember, folks, who am I? I'm the guy reminding you that the system wants your violence. So don't give them your violence. Meditate on that for a hot second. And also, thoughts and prayers for Trues, not just to the first family, and I mean everybody out there, because, they were all a hot mess and a hot jumble in multiple vehicles together. And if I may, fantasy thought, and this is sort of real too, I kind of fantasy wish I knew and was directly involved with and could be test marketing the people behind the first full self-contained air filtering Invisalign helmet. It's not Invisalign. That's a that's dentistry. Forgive me for the weird vocabulary misfire there. But it's like a transparent dome with like an interesting, like, it all just sort of fits comfortably around you, and it's hands-free. And there's all kinds of mask innovation going on engineering-wise out there in the world. And dare I say, I think I was a pretty early called it kind of guy on that. Like, the boutique mask came and went, bedazzled mask, there it was. Now there's like the flippy face shield that's like super convenient and low slung, and you can just like flip it down. You can flip it up and like you're in compliance, and you don't need a irritating, apparently botulism inducing, doesn't let you breathe any oxygen at all and kills your babies in your nutsack, limp rag in your face. Which, by the way, you guys, if that were true, then like all the cowboys would have died all the days that they ever rode with their bandanas in front of them to like deal with dust in the air, whatever. Extreme crazy. Everyone just like narrow back down towards what's actually plausible and real. Like go sit in the closest proximity to reality as you can for a good hot 45 minutes. Stare at the moon late at night. Remember what's real. Yeah, that sums it all up as far as like what my brand of crazy is. And on that note, friends and enthusiasts of the show, I leave you with a moment of silence and then a brief bit of music for you to tell me whether it sucks or if I should keep tinkering in that direction. Maybe mix it with something else. What? I'm just experimenting and exploring here, friends, with silly digital tools at my disposal. And this short 1 minute and 42 second track I like to call Ulta Trap 101 Remix Live Upstart Standings from the imaginary album Starting Over by the fictional DJ character DJ Z.
You know it is going away. We've done, I think, on average, really phenomenally. And you had doctors saying that we've done an incredible job. I think what happens is it's going to go away. This is going to go away. We were able to cut it off, stop it, just like this. And it is dying out. The numbers are starting to get very good. And now it's time to open up, get back to work. The coronavirus, that's going to sort of just disappear, I hope.
His own words. I don't know who made that mixtape there, and I don't even remember currently how I got my hands on that, but it is, I think, it should be said, it should be allowed to be public domain, given that he said that, he chose to say that on live television while being covered by, like, all the channels at once, usually, because it was during, you know, his little special daily TV show that he was running at the time. This is real life current events and soon to be human history, folks. And it's an amazing thing that he painted himself into this corner. And I really do pray to baby Jesus and Yeshua himself, the gestalt of the living orgasmic cosmos, and to the womb, Mother Nature herself, that may she be gentle in her tough love, because this virus is like a real thing, right? And I think that him getting sick... Now, there are some people out there suggesting, there are various voices and various opinions that this may not be an authentic report. And I don't want to speculate, right? I don't know. It's being presented to me as if it were. Am I a sheeple? I don't like to think that I am, because I do, like, I'm looking at my copy of Aldous Huxley's Brave New World and Brave New World Revisited, and somewhere in this house, is Catch-22, and The Life of Pi, 2 copies, I believe, floating around for whatever reason. What's my point? Name calling works of literature. As an aspiring author, I think we're all trapped in a Will Ferrell movie. Wait, what? That's a crazy idea. That's a theory. That only a character in a movie about a guy, that gets broken out of the insane asylum by Will Ferrell. In the middle of the movie where that's what's going on. No, in real life, this president of questionable, dare I say, shady, moral, flexible fiber, who's, just a known narcissist and pathological liar. And I don't think that's character assassination or a hit job to say when, the copious amounts of evidence and people speaking from positions of, like, having spent enough time to gather enough information to form this kind of opinion about him in the professional sense, the professional world, has been reported, publicly in multiple ways, in multiple instances, on multiple platforms, multiple bylines, etc., etc., etc. It's not any breaking news to say that from his own niece to his own swamp replacements, appointees, and former henchmen, etc., and et al., there are people willing to say on public record that this individual, long before the virus infected him, was diseased of the human spirit and mind with such ailments as greed, lust for power, narcissism, etc., 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 etc. I wouldn't be the first, and I'm not breaking any ground repeating that nonsense. Am I being led by the nose for it? No, I think it is likely to be some thread the needle down the middle path of most organically likely to be most organically true version of all those extremes. That's, the special take you come to hear about at the heart of this show. With a little bit of shits and giggles, funs and winks and, nods and say no more thrown in just for comedy's sake, right? But trust me, I understand. If that was 7D chess, I understand, like, the possible, speculatively speaking, dare I say it, as a guy sitting on his ass, baked out of his mind, using his free right speech granted by the Constitution and the Statue of Liberty, because, you know, they're like married or something. Pause. I really do think of America and the world in such an anthropomorphic kind of way. And the Statue of Liberty represents sort of like the soft, divine, feminine, you know, better angels that are oft talked about by those whimsical, would-be philosophical historians that love to comment on the mass media at all. And that is also sort of like a popular cultural thing that is commonly referenced by folks who take Americana, quote unquote, you know, Americana, the word in bunny ears, as it were, seriously, which, you know, I at times have, and so can say, you know, some of us do. And also, why shouldn't we? Since this is all a nested dream of dreams and a fractal recursion of dreamings, dreamathons of dreamertons, philosophically speaking, you know, spiritually, dare I say. and we, what perspective do we gain? Well, certainly that perhaps, you know, if I may be cynical for a hot minute, may he, the real human being that the president is, perhaps just maybe learn his lesson and own up to it, that handling it the way he handled it, dare I say this, 42 minutes and 7 seconds into my podcast on October 2nd, Friday of 2020 at 5:01 p.m., that, you know, he shouldn't have played it the way he did, which was, forgive me for saying, a little risky and criminally negligent, I think. I'm not a lawyer, and, you know, I'm not trying to offend anybody, but for shit's sake, folks, take a step back. He called it a hoax and literally said, and I've said this too many times, I sound like a broken record, and, you know, and half the media sounds like this, and no one's paying me to say this. I'm really just a bum artist with a leftover podcasting account that, who knows? Who knows? Who knows where the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo will be in 9 months' time? Hopefully on a media empire built on a, you know, Harry Potter-esque series of sci-fi, future retro historical fantasy fiction books, inspired by true events, but also it's sort of, you know, written in fantasy jest and parody, so that we don't go to any of those depths and extremes. Ha ha! Excuse me a minute. We really truly are living through an aha moment, right? I've been saying for weeks on the occasions where it has been occasioned for me to point out to people that because there are people out there on social media platforms and in the real world, dare I say it out loud, that are willing to press to you earnestly that they think it's all a hoax. And that maybe there are real deaths, but too many of them are being attributed to things that might have been inevitable and whatever. All the soft shoe, you know, salt on the ground, dance around and grind it kind of stuff, every variation you can imagine. But that ultimately, hoax is the ultimate answer. And that while some people may have died, it's only really 6%, which even that's inflated. And that's, so really only like 1% of the number that they're quoting actually, whatever. That hyper minimize it. Like, all of that was arguably, counter arguably, such sort of engineered dismissal fed out there into the world to be echo chambered and kicked around to sort of promote and encourage maximum exposure. And to a certain degree, dare we say it, it seems to be working. Because as we sit here and wait for news updates, and hopefully all collectively really truly do unite, setting aside party, as I've said multiple times and will say again and again, between now and whenever we achieve peaceful transition into, a different person in power as the temporary king in the people's palace of temporary kingdomness known as the WH. No. We can unite together in praying for the greatest good of everyone involved, the greatest healing for everyone involved, the greatest possible growth through catharsis and breakthrough possible for everyone involved. And by everyone, I mean, let's be blunt, the entire human species. But yeah, because a little bit of thinking in terms of community can always be helpful and good. We can, dial it in to just everybody here in good old Chumtopia, formerly known as the good old US of A, the United States of America. And I jest, of course, right? I poke and prod. As a beloved enthusiast and permanent resident of this place, this idea, this experiment, this community of communities in union with one another, I think it is always fair to say it is not too much to try and rally around, the true and good things that can unite us as a whole and can transcend all the barriers we just identified, right? Can we unite as a local neighborhood? Can we unite as a state, as a county, as this city or that city? Can we unite as the world as a whole, as a species-wide phenomena around the notion of the greatest healing for the greatest good of all humanity in the face of this ridiculously persistent, stubborn, in theory, relatively new, if not a total grand masterminded hoax, very real vector of disease and potential, harm and even, God forbid, things worse. Lots of people have passed on. And I've been trying to be, in my own way, really present about honoring that in recent episodes. And the great tragedy, dear friends, about all of them, past, current, and, present, onset, and any all potential future ones, is that arguably, especially here, could have easily been, a lower number. We could have easily prevented a greater percentage of the overall transmission, thus, reducing the overall end result numbers on all levels. Preventable death is always lamentable death, dare I say it. And there, plenty of memes for myself and any archivists inclined to memify my words to go back and look upon and meme. And with that, friends, I thank you for joining me and for bearing with me as I stumble through my own long haul pandemic lockdown, addled brain thoughts about this historic, it might even be a nothing hamburger, right? Praise Jesus if by next Friday afternoon, he's back to yelling and screaming and being a big fat bully, except he's wearing fancy masks and maybe even, that... I would love it if Trump came back strong, and I mean this in a sort of like, I mean this in sort of comedy. Like, if I was writing a movie about this, I would write that he comes back a little stronger than before, having learned some lessons and owned up to, maybe being a big jerk about playing it down hadn't been the best idea, and maybe willing to play ball. I don't know. Is it all a big psyop? There are those out there already winking and nodding and spreading whatever alternative theories, and historians will sort through them all and debate. I haven't had time to cast about and do a fresh review since the last time I talked about what a plethora there was of conspiracy theories. Whenever the last time I was that I referenced it on the show, which I might have done so yesterday. Forgive me, friends. But the last time I tried to do a show about this, whenever that was, pick a lane, that one, right? So since that episode, whenever the bloody hell that was, I haven't really tried very hard to find out what the cutting edge, freshest, most juiciest tidbit of conspiracy theory might be about what COVID-19 really is and what is really about to happen. Although I've gotten a lot of really amazing alerts on YouTube, dare I say, some of which I screen grabbed just because of the wording. It was like, I don't know, it tickled something. Thought they might be worth noting. But I digress. We'll be doing a review of that and other things in upcoming episodes as I bring to you an almost daily attempt to, really try to live my truth through this audio journey blog past. That fell apart. Take 7. We're all shocked at what's happened, so tune in for more as I drop new episodes of this audio blog, talk show, radio-styled fantasy blog podcast of cuckoo craziness, where I, your humble host, the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo, share with you my own personal, unfiltered, and honestly, nobody pays me to say this, legit, I swear, and I have no ulterior motive other than to think to question and be like, what's going on, my friends? And like I say, to hopefully get around to writing my own fun fantasy fiction, fan fiction art book about a future that we hopefully might be able to avoid by exercising it as fan fiction and never having to live through it, right? Like the extreme cartoon comic book version where we all turn into X-Men and fly around and defend an empire of cuckoo craziness. But until I crank it all out, stick with me for the drip by drippity drop version moments that will be my coverage of the coming days and weeks of what I'm sure will be a most exquisite October full of too many October surprises.
Do not be overwhelmed by his impressive word jazz.
Namaste, my friends and listeners. Be sure to tune in this Sunday, where the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo incoherently rambles at you about his thoughts on how he might be able to trigger and invoke some species-wide spiritual healing in most serious and most earnest terms. Not bullshitting you, not trying to sell you some miracle elixir, not selling you nothing, just talking about some good old-fashioned, straight-up, organic healing magic of the most, universally transcendental form. Call me crazy, call me kooky, but I think there might be some there when it comes to plain old-fashioned forgiveness healing. So that'll be this Sunday. And when it comes to all things political and or intersectional with spirituality and current events, conspiracy theory, and public discourse, and free speech, you heard the weirdest theory about what's going on probably here. Well, no, that's not true. There's some really weird theories about what's going on. But you heard my theory about what's going on here first. That was terrible. I'm going to edit that out whenever I get around to finally doing a remix Jamsy Jams. Did I already play this first one? That last track, by the way, for those of you still straggling listening along, was Funk Sessions 2 remix. Hot Takes, Political Shakes. DJ Zed from the imaginary album Starting Over, Volume 0. I think we kicked off this show with this 42-second clip, but maybe I forgot to play it. I'm gonna play it now, just for shits and giggles. It's 5:19.
Well, folks, that bowl is cashed and dusted.
I know, but
Thank
it's
you for
5:19.
joining me
We could pack another
for yet
one.
another most excellent session of Cannabis Talk.
Amen, brother.
Scale it, pay it forward. and
That's what I'm
remember,
talking about. Pack another one. Oh, I'll pack another one.
Healing.
Healing.
Cannabis heals.
What he
So
said.
next time,
What I said.
your
What we said.
spiritual cannabis mystic talk show host, the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo.
Namaste, and thanks for tuning in, friends. May peace, love, and grooviness blossom in your heart. And seriously, folks, may we unite and rally like this nation can. Set aside all the crazy for a hot second. Just pray for the best possible outcome for everyone fighting this ridiculous disease. And for everyone still kind of kicking and screaming in denial. And for everybody out there fomenting violence in their hearts, let's pray for that real quick. Let's pray for some release and some healing and some transcendence in that department, folks. Because whoever they are, wherever they are our brothers and sisters are in such outrage and in such pain that they, who in whichever direction they're lashing out, it's been a year of lashing out, in all kinds and forms and shapes and directions of violent self-expression, I guess we could say. I'm trying to be broad stroke and big pictured and noble and not judgmental and wise about it, right? If that makes sense. And I hope I don't come off as whatever the wrong way some people might feel is the wrong way for me to be potentially wrong-wayedly coming off. But let's pray for some healing and some peace just across the board, right? We can rally around that, folks. Yes, we can. And it's one of those things that we can sort of just like pour that out and pay it forward. Energetically, spiritually, emotionally, theoretically. So let's join together in doing it. Amen to that. Namaste, folks. Enjoy the rest of your Friday. And may October 2020 not get too wicked crazy out of control. Am I right? Are you with me? And let mundane sort of normalcy in that sort of disappointing flip-floppy, oh, now the Democrats are in control and everything's just kind of be sort of boring and democratically sort of that version of everything again for a few years, sort of blah. And it's not going to be as hard and as horrible as the fear-mongering is, but it will be, of course, a repeat of what it's always been, etc., etc. Let the mundane sort of win out instead of any of the competing crazy theories out there, because we have some whoppers out there contending some crazy, gnarly, not the least of which that we've all been giggling and kind of sort of secretly hoping and waiting for aliens to show up, but not really. On that note, can I tell you I saw something really weird? Did you look up and see the moon last night? Sorry for dragging this out, folks, but this is serious and worth pointing out. I'll talk about this in a future episode a bit more. But I had to pause and stop somewhere and look at the moon in a sort of completely safe as way as possible with my mask on my face in public. And there was either a lot of air traffic going on that was just perfectly in line. I don't know, maybe from out yonder that direction, there are indeed small little airports and, things in that direction from which the moon was rising. And it was one of those beautiful, epic moon rises that I wish I'd caught a little earlier. And I wish that I had one of those, really super great cameras for actually photographing it in great detail where you can see and feel the sense of scale. But the moon looked the biggest it has ever looked to my eyes and my mind. And I can't show you a picture because no cell phone camera does it justice. Against the horizon and the buildings that were sort of in the way, that I recall ever seeing it in my life. And it was gorgeous. And at some point during my time stealing some observations of it, and I almost hesitate to say it, either I'm crazy or there was a lot of little tiny airplanes flying around from like the local airport. But it looked like I saw a light that read like a Cessna that looked like it was trying to fly around in just such a way to look like it was an optical illusion of it flying around the moon. Or there was a spaceship flying around the moon as it hung low and fat and huge. And it sort of looked like a Cessna flying around in the circle here in the atmosphere, trying to create the optical illusion. Because in my mind, looking at it and being awestruck, I literally had competing images. You know how your brain will like see a thing and try to piece it together and then give you Like, here's what I think it is. You know what I'm saying? Some of you observe your own minds and you know what I'm saying. Some of you are like, is this person insane? Or, on, quote, drugs? And that's a loaded question and full of malarkey, in my opinion, which we'll talk about some other future episode. But, obviously, it's a cannabis theme episode, so there's that. And, the world can suck it. Cannabis heals and is a magical plant, along with its sister hemp, that we should be reimagining and re-engineering the world with. And that's what this show's about. But in the moment, when I was watching this, I was sober AF, I swear to you. Because I was out and about and, getting groceries and stuff. And this all happened while I was, transporting the things I had acquired at a local brick and mortar, national chain grocery store into my car, sober as anybody's business. And I look up to look at the moon as I'm managing the cart and the stuff that I'm trying to put in the trunk of my car. And I swear I saw one light, not several lights, although I imagine multiple planes flying in different directions would have created the same illusion, because I looked up and looked down and looked up and looked down. And I was piecing, and I know how the world works. And I know that you can sort of piece together something that's not actually what happened based on what you really saw, and it becomes something else sort of that's close to the truth but not actually the truth, etc. So I don't know what to tell you. But here's the image. Here's where I'm getting at. And it's worth making the episode this rambly long, because I honestly it just blossomed in my mind now as I was about to hit the big red button. And I was like, nope, gotta get this out. But as I looked up and down and was putting stuff in my trunk and looked up and down, my brain innately went like, what was that? What did I just see? Look again. And I looked like a third and or a fourth time. And then I couldn't see anything but the moon. And there was like a building really, it was coming up between buildings and whatever. And it was like there was like a tree close enough to me to sort of like be framing it and being kind of sort of in the way, but not really. And my brain asked me, did I just see a light? Like my brain processing the image, paused and processing this set of imagery you just threw at us with the eyeballs. I just want to check. Did you think it was something flying around the moon? The actual moon? Because that's the actual moon, and it looks gloriously beautiful and huge as fuck. That was the vibe that I got. It wasn't exactly that sentence, but that's the sentence I gotta tell you now, dear friends and listeners. And then I was like, I don't know, man, but it was weird, is what I said to my brain, as my brain was asking me these questions. Or whatever that was, the image core text part of my brain that processes imagery. Actual optical, my eyeballs just send that? Did my eyeballs just eyeball that? And then it arrived, it was like processing, and then a little ding bell happened. There's always a little ding in my brain. Because, toaster oven. And it's sort of the way it works, metaphorically speaking. And the door opens up and an idea pops out. And in this time, two competing ideas popped out. And one was, I swear to you, hand to God, I literally did have these two thoughts in my brain, and I had to what? Fuck, never mind. And I almost and then immediately went what did I just, it's gone. Sober as fuck, friends. I swear to you. I just acquired some adult beverage times quite legally. Had not cracked them open yet. They were in a box, sealed, closed, in my trunk. Had to show my ID. Struggled at the cash register with the question. We got to put a pin on the board here, because I do want to take a serious deep dive into this, because we're in for a long haul, I think. If this is a Groundhog's Day moment, next year is going to get gnarly. The rest of the decade is going to be even gnarlier. Talking dinosaurs. Heard it here first. No, let's not have talking dinosaurs, right? In my book series. I get confused. Show the ID, lower the mask to prove it's really me, and I'm not just trying to pull off a fake ID thing. Because I get, I don't know, my youthful eyes, I used to get, before COVID-19 happened, I would occasionally get carded for cigarettes. Because yes, folks, I've never claimed to be a vegan or a guru or anything. I'm a crazy, self-appointed, eccentric, pseudo-esoteric mystic of the sort of like, it's just, you fall into place and it happens magically type. So don't take me too seriously. Grain of salt. Take me about as seriously as you would Tucker Carlson if you read that article about the lawyer that argued that no one should take Tucker Carlson seriously. And then back it up a little bit because I am sort of halfway serious. More serious than Tucker Carlson. I'll tell you what. Chakras are real. I don't give a shit what anybody says. Do I know what to do with them? Not claiming anything about that. Just telling you I know enough to know that they're real. And they're part of you. But I digress. What's my point? Oh, I got this competing image in my brain. Thanks for bearing with me, folks. And one of them was like a kooky, crazy old hoot of a sort of like loose cannon, well-intentioned, maybe like a guy that dresses up as Santa Claus and does, works Santa Claus gigs because he can grow a big fat white beard and have crazy long, happy, like, Santa Claus-like hair, but also loves to fly Cessnas, like going, woo! They're going to think there's an alien out here flying around the moon. If you can imagine that as like a comic book cell with the word bubble, except I saw it live for reals, as if in between looking up and down from the moon to my groceries, my brain in the theater of the imaginatorium that is your mind, my mind, our mind, it vividly and illicitly zoomed up to see it as if it could have been happening up there, as if we were in a movie where a character could vividly imagine that happening, and it looked like as if you really pushed with the camera right up into the moon. And it was not an alien, but a guy in a Cessna, or some friends in a Cessna. I got both. Like, it was either a solo guy or a couple dudes, friends, a chick, two, whatever, in 2 or 3 Cessnas. Just enough to, like, with lights on, lights off, to make it look like did something just blinky, flashy light fly around the moon? Because that was the question, the overriding, serious, Shakespearean, did I just see my own father's ghost kind of question that was haunting me as I unpacked my very minimalist grocery items into the tiny pseudo trunk of my electric dune buggy. I just had weird flashbacks to a theme park, but that shall not be mentioned at this point because I don't know what their feelings are. But I digress. And then the other competing image, here we go, thank you for waiting for it, was like an actual alien. I think he was smoking a blunt a la Paul. If you haven't seen Paul, go watch it. If I ever prayed for a movie to be real, like flaunting it in our face, fuck off, that's so literally true, it's real, and you'll never believe it because you think it's a comedy, but it's for reals. I hope Paul, you know which one I'm talking about, with Simon Pegg and the alien, and he's like, he's a big stoner and all that. Turns invisible when he holds his breath. That kind of alien zipping around, actually doing a lap around the moon so that it looked wicked gorgeous, crazy style, like, oh God, is this Encounters of the, Close Encounters of the 2020 kind? Starting, and then boom, no more flashing lights around the moon. And I'm like closing the trunk to my car. I'm like, wow, I don't know. But it probably was just like a cop helicopter flying from here to whatever that town is over there and looking like something happening like that erroneously in my mind because I looked at it all blurry and just up and down real quick and, I don't know. But I forgot about it as the evening went on because I got home and had my tasty adult beverage, which is ginger and lime kombucha beer by Boochcraft. They're not paying me to say but this is a real, genuine, authentic endorsement. drink responsibly, folks. Don't drink and drive. For fuck's sake, trust me, I learned the hard way. Don't do it. Dun dun dun. Ominous backstory story. No, for reals, folks. Public service announcements, not cool. Whatever your opinion about laws are, it is currently in many states against the law. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. But when you can, enjoy a tasty adult beverage at home. The one I'm currently only enjoying the most, and not very often, but just often enough to be like, yup. And if I was a rich, wealthy person, it's the kind I would like buy stock in and like be like have also in stock. That wasn't a play on words. Those are two different sentences. I guess it's a play on words. Is it a play on words? I literally mean like I would buy, if I was rich, if I was a bazillionaire, I would buy stock in that company because I love this beverage so much. And it's a 7% alcohol kombucha-based kombucha beer. I've seen 2 flavors. I don't know how many else they have. They're not paying me to talk. I'm not currently drinking any, but I most sincerely intend to drink some more before the world ends. And that's for true. Okay, I've been rambling far too long. Forgive me. I hate to sound like I turned into a beer commercial. That was horrible. Don't drink, kids. If you don't currently drink alcohol, don't start. Especially if you are under the age of whatever you're not supposed to be the age of. Because you're not supposed to. And all those provisos goes likewise for cannabis friends and listeners. Because I do believe in that sort of, fair and equal disclosing. That having been said, thank you for tuning in. Sorry for making things awkward. And may peace, love, and grooviness blossom in your heart. And may everybody take risk reduction measures seriously. And also hold their representatives accountable if they get a little bit abusive with their tough love. Because there is a line in the sand of like, all right, guys, let's not turn this into some bullshit thing, right? Corruption and incompetence in the response to this disease has been, in my humble opinion, my consistent primary concern and critique and claim beyond whatever media noise you may want to attribute to my thinking, correctly or incorrectly. I firmly believe that has been a serious problem from the get-go, on all levels, at all fronts, and that we as a species should, as we unite to heal, take it seriously, take risk reduction measures seriously, maybe stop being jerks about it in either direction, and start realizing, looking around our social media environments, noticing that those are pretty toxic, pretty fear-inducing echo chambers of manipulative content designed to keep us bickering and stressed out and arguing and or fretting and or etc., etc., etc. And that we don't need to tolerate that kind of nonsense. And that this disease might very well, have its own interesting surprises in store for us if it is authentically really real and not under the direction of any particular human organization or governmental agency of any kind. There's a plethora of crazy conspiracy theories, as we've mentioned. But assuming the most truly organic version of like, duh, you guys, it's just really a disease and it's just really real. And it came out of the process of life evolving here on Earth the way it does. Then we should really sort of take a moment, take stock, reassess, and really learn the lessons there of how we've mishandled, and really start, printing some of that funny money that helps recovery, stimulus, economic stimulus, and et al. In a much more responsible way than we have the past 7 months. Because honestly, folks, no matter where you sit on the many wedge issues, it could have been so much less worse than it was. And yeah, it could have been way more worse, but amen, it wasn't, right? Now we've truly come full circle. And as always, friends, stay safe, stay sane, stay good humans first, and question everything. And may peace, love, and grievingness blossom in your hearts. Amen. Peace out. Sorry for rambling. It is, of course, an epic 420 episode on the return from, me not joining you on the airwaves also often enough. Until next time. Have I stopped rambling yet? I don't know. Oh, I haven't pushed the button yet. Sorry. Yes. Peace out, yo.